We have built two scenes, but we don't have a way to go from one scene to the other. To do that, we're going to have to start scripting. We're going to have to write some code that will tell the game to go from one scene to another at some moment in the game. That moment for us is going to be when we hit a door. Before we start scripting, let's set up the editor. I would suggest going to the Sublime Text website, download Sublime Text, and choose the operating system that you're working on and download Sublime Text. Once you have that downloaded, come back to your Unity editor and go to Edit, Preferences. Under External Tools, you can choose whatever script editor you want to use. So instead of using the internal MonoDevelop editor that comes with Unity, we're going to browse for the editor we want to use. I find Sublime Text inside of Program Files and choose the sublimetext.exe file. Once it changes to say Sublime Text for your editor, you can go ahead and just close this window. And now when I open a script, it will automatically open with that editor. Another editor you might want to check out is Visual Studio Code. If you go to Visual Studio, make sure you type in code. We don't want Visual Studio because that's not free. And you can again download it for Windows or Mac. It will have a similar appearance to Sublime Text and mostly the same functionality. Now it's time to create a script. Your scripts will be attached to game objects, and the game object we want this script attached to is the doorway, because this is the object that when we collide with it, we want it to do something, in this case load another scene. There are several ways to add a script. One way is to click on the object and in the inspector choose Add Component. Start typing in the word script and you'll see new script pop up. I'm going to name mine Load Scene. Don't use spaces here. I'm using a capital L and a capital S, which is the naming scheme that I'm going to follow for all of my scripts. Create an add, and I see that the script appears inside the inspector as a component on my object. If I look in my project window under Assets, you can also see the Load Scene script there. I want to organize this, so I'm going to drag the Load Scene script into the Scripts folder. If you don't have a Scripts folder yet, go ahead and create one to do that. If I go into the Scripts folder, I've got that script. And the other way I can add scripts if I'm not ready to attach it to a game object yet is to just right-click where I want to add the script inside the project window and say Create C# script. And that would be creating a script as well. So let's look at this script. Since we've already set our editor, all we have to do is double click on it down here and it should automatically open up the script. I'm not going to explain all of this code to you right now. Eventually we will develop an understanding of C#, but just notice that the class name is called Load Scene. Your class name needs to match the file name. Usually you're going to have code inside of a start method for what you want to happen right when the game object that this script is attached to shows up in your game, and also in the update method, which is code that will execute over and over and over repeatedly. However, we're not going to use either one of these right now, so I'm going to delete all this and just leave the class with the beginning curly brace and close curly brace. Inside of that block, I'm going to write a little method. Just like the start and update methods are automatically known by Unity and will automatically run at the appropriate times, so is the onTriggerEnter. I'm going to type void onTriggerEnter, and it must have the correct capitalization. It must have parentheses immediately after it, followed by its own set of curly braces. The code that is in here is what will execute when a trigger is entered. Again, don't worry about understanding this code completely. All we want to do in this lesson is be able to attach a script and make it work. The only command I'm going to give it is debug, has to have a capital D, .log with a capital L, and this time inside the parentheses we are going to write a little message. Using quotes, I'm going to say load the scene. It doesn't matter if you use all capital letters or lowercase inside of the quotes, because whatever you type in there is just going to be the message that prints out inside of our console. If I hit the semicolon and save by pressing Ctrl S and come back to Unity, I can see that there's no errors showing up down here. If there were any errors, you would have to fix them. Let me give you an example of one of those errors. If I come back to my script and say I left off the ending quotation mark, save it again, and come back, I have an error showing here. It's saying that there's an error, new line and constant, and it's saying it's on line 8, column 30. That same error message in more detail is described inside the console window. And we can see that error. We see a few other things here. Those might be old. You can say clear and it would get rid of any old errors. Apparently these are all related to my one mistake that I made. And they give you ideas about what might be wrong. Notice here I have 3 errors showing. I can turn those off or turn them back on. So if you're getting errors but you don't see them, it could be because you have that toggled. There's also warnings and messages, which currently I have 0 of each. We'll learn more about debugging strategies later, but let's go ahead and fix that by putting in the quote. Saving it again. All I have to do is click back into Unity and wait a moment, and it will automatically update. So now I have no errors again. If I have the console showing when I run it, we should get a message when I collide with the door. No message. So now we have to start debugging. There were no syntax errors, nothing that stopped the code from running, so there must be some type of logic error, something we're just not thinking of or forgetting. If I click on this script and look at it and think about it, I see that we're using the onTriggerEnter. Well, that means that the door, or the thing that this script is attached to, needs to be a trigger, and we haven't done that yet. As soon as we make it a trigger, then it will automatically be calling the onTriggerEnter method anytime something enters its trigger. So what is a trigger? Let's come back to Unity, click on the doorway. We already have a collider, which is wonderful because that's how you make a trigger. So you can edit the collider, move it around, make it stick further out if you wanted to, whatever you want to do with that collider. But right now, all I want to do is change the isTrigger to enabled. If I save and run, I see in the console that I did collide with the door. Let's see if I run into it again. I get another message. Our script is working! Woohoo!